So hello you guys and welcome back to my channel. I don't usually do this style of video until the end of seasons, but listen, the most recent episode of The Last of Us has the whole internet buzzing. So I thought we could do a sit down and talk about things because I was a small bit emotionally distraught at the end of my reaction video. I'm so sick of watching Pedro die. I reiterate, pick a normal fucking role, please. Please, could you do a rom-com or something next? Something nice? And I don't think I made any points. I think I just kind of cried. And you know what's surprising about that? I think, we're going on a tangent straight off the bat. I think that the public's idea of how people consume media, films, TV, games, books, whatever, I think it's changed. Because I've been making reaction videos for a while. It started with The Walking Dead and the whole Walking Dead universe because that show owns my heart. I have a whole half sleeve dedicated to Walking Dead related stuff. My background's mostly Walking Dead merch. I started with Walking Dead content and I remember, I want to say it was the lineup. That got me emotional, as it did with most of the internet as well. But I remember getting a lot of people really bitchily in the comments being like, it's a show, you're crying over a show. I don't think I received a single comment like that under my Last of Us reaction, which I was shocked at. People were surprisingly nice. I think it's because everybody was just kind of collectively traumatized. Maybe the whole world cried when they watched it. So I want to talk about that episode. I want to break it down and I want to get into it because, oh my god, I watched it again last night. Yes, I put myself through that so I could make notes and talk to you guys. And then after that, I went back and I rewatched the first episode of season 1 because Joel Miller is fine. He's alive. He's doing well. Okay? And then I realised after starting episode 1, oh my god, this might be just as traumatic as the episode I just watched because I had to relive losing Sarah again. I don't know why I always pick the most traumatic shows to be my favourite, but I don't pick them, they pick me. Oh my god, what does that say about me? Alright, so I want to start off by saying very, very few shows have made me so emotional. Do you ever get to the point, right, where you're so sad that you get mad, you get angry, but then you're so angry that you just go silent and you can't even verbalise? The most recent episode of The Last of Us had me like that, and I have only ever felt that way about 2 other shows, The Walking Dead and Interview with the Vampire. I've never felt such a visceral reaction from a TV show, because at the end of the day, that is what it is. It's a TV show, it's make-believe. But my god, when it's done right, when the actors, the script, when everything just aligns, it can wreck your shit. Yeah, so we're going to start talking about the end of the episode because let's face it, that's what we're all still railing over. One comment that I got in my reaction video that really, it was smart and I agree, is revenge is a never-ending cycle, right? I agree with that, and that is the proper take, I guess, that any person is supposed to take away from this because you're seeing the cycle in motion. But me, I fear that I would be the clown that would get on my bike and drive right into that cycle. Toot toot, the clown is here. Where's my tent? I'm setting up. That's the whole point of this, right? And people who play the games, we know, because I have played the games, the takeaway is supposed to be that revenge is bad, or that it's a dead-end street. And it was the same in the games. You see things in motion, but the great thing about this particular storyline, specifically Abby as a character, is the fact that you're supposed to resonate with her on some level. You're supposed to feel for her on some level, whether you like it or not. Her dad dying was a direct result of Joel's actions. It's understandable she would want revenge for Joel, but somebody else in my comment section made a fantastic point of, from Abby's point of view, wouldn't your parents want you to live a happy life and not a life filled of hunting someone down just to clobber their brains out on the ground of a lodge randomly one Tuesday morning? But she needed this. She needed the revenge. Now, doing this to Joel doesn't bring her dad back. So she's going to be aimless there for a while because she's done the thing that's kept her alive the last few years and that has fueled her spite and her rage. I always love watching that part of a character arc, the fallout of after they get what they want, which is a big part of the reason why, and this is such an unpopular opinion, I'm aware, one of my favourite episodes of The Walking Dead is an episode called Still. It's all about Darren and Beth. They're wandering the wilderness together. And Beth's whole thing in that episode is she just wants a drink. And then she gets the drink and she breaks down crying. She doesn't know what to do now. The one thing that was keeping her going is gone. That's a lot different to, well, I've murdered my father's murderer. What now? Another point a lot of people were bringing up under that reaction video for episode 2 is that everyone was like, Joel didn't do anything. He didn't move. He didn't say anything. And I was so furiously confused in the moment too. Joel just sat there and said nothing. And when he did say something, it was to just hurry along the killing. It was to push her towards killing him. I was like, you beautiful, silly little man, what are you doing? I don't want to doubt you, but you stupid little bitch. But rewatching it the second time, a lot of things clicked, right? So Joel, we know that Joel has been living with the guilt of what he did that day in order to save Ellie. We know that. I think everything that Abby said to him has just been everything that he's been thinking in his head about himself. That it was in a way kind of like validation, that it was kind of like, yeah, I did that. And you know, her saying like, did you keep count as you did it? Did you even care? It was like his worst thoughts being verbalized and seeing the direct impact that what he did had on someone else. He knew like this is going to have complications and impacts on other people's lives, but actually seeing it, being face to face with the consequences of your actions, I would have been vomiting blood up in the corner. I'd have been like, I'll be over to you in a minute, I'll tell you about the killing. Oh no. Editing me just jumping in from bed. We're really getting to know each other now. I wanted to point out as well that like Joel, we know why Joel killed Abby's father, right? To save Ellie. Her life was in immediate danger. They were about to like rip out her head. Abby killing Joel was just revenge. I feel like he could have just spoken up in the moment. I think we talk about that later in this video. But he could have spoken up in the moment and been like, I didn't kill him just for the shits and giggles. I wasn't having a fun old time skipping through the hospital corridors, murdering people. There was a reason for me doing what I'm doing. And I feel like somebody's life being in direct danger makes what he did a little bit more understanding. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't okay it, but at least it explains it. But I can relate to Abby on like a really fundamental level, because if that were me and I were in her situation and I found out some motherfucker took out one of my parents and then continued living their life, I'd be like, oh, you and me are we're gonna have words. I also think as well that he knew that there's nothing that he could have said or done to help. There's nothing that he could say that would fix this, that would make her feel better, that would make her see where he was coming from. He had to live through losing Sarah and dealing with the grief. Look at what he did when Ellie's life was in danger. He went on a killing spree unapologetically. So he's like, I think he's like, I can't even be mad at her because she's doing exactly what I would do and have done. So I think that's part of why he didn't say anything too. And I can't believe that like the last thing he said was just hurrying along the process. She was in the middle of her monologuing, which a lot of people were like, I'm sick of her monologuing. I heard her speech was too long. She was waiting for this for years. God forbid a woman wants to monologue. But I do agree. I also was like, oh my God, get to the point. I actually, in hindsight, I kind of like that he didn't say anything. I think it worked. I think it really leaned into the tense like situation that we were in, because there was a number of times during that scene that I thought someone's going to step in. Someone's going to step in and stop this, because you know when a scene is about to flip, when they're faking you out basically, there's always this like gut feeling that you get, because it's because of how other people in the scene act, or maybe a camera angle lingers too long on a person or a situation, and you know they're keeping us looking this way because something else is going on over here. Something's going to happen, and then it didn't. Yeah, the worst possible thing happened. I had to look at my beautiful little brown eyes getting his head smashed in, Lucille style, all bloody and eyeballs bulging on the floor. Third time I've had to watch a character that I love get their head caved in by a homicidal maniac. And you know, 3 times is not a lot for something to happen, but it's still really weird that it happened 3 times. Not even twice. 3 times. Twice is a coincidence. 3 is a sequence. I'm not saying I like any characters anymore. I'm not picking no more characters to be my favourite. Pedro Pascal, the man that you are. The scenes I think that hurt me the most, it was a shot of Ellie and Joel looking at each other lying on the floor, and we'll talk about Ellie in a minute. But the shot that like killed me the most wasn't even focused on him. It was when Abby first started beating the ever-loving daylights out of him, and you could just hear him crying. You could hear him whimpering in the background, and I was like, there's nothing that cuts your soul into little ice cubes and packs them away in a freezer quite like the sound of a strong man whimpering. Caitlin Denver absolutely killed this whole scene. She was a showstopper, and what made it so much harder is, personally, I couldn't even hate her for it. And it's like you want to, right? She's beating the head off your favourite character. Joel is my guy. I love him. Newsflash. Do you know, if you were to take a shot every time I say that sentence, I don't think you're making it to the end of the evening. I've completely forgotten what I was talking about there. What was I talking about? Joel. Loving him. Likely thing for me to say. Abby. Giving the reasoning to why she wanted to kill Joel pretty much straight off the bat instead of like afterwards and working it out. I think it just made more sense because like there is viewers that watch this show that don't know the games, that have not played the games, and they need to make it linear for those viewers, right? You need to have a clear, cohesive storyline to viewers so they're not like, hey, what the fuck? And I feel like giving her somewhat of a backstory and a reason to be where she is, it made sense. Personally, I might have done a backstory episode or at least a series of flashbacks focusing on her so like the viewers could connect with her a small bit more and care a bit more, to sympathise, because you are caving the head in of a beloved character 2 episodes into the 2nd season. Now luckily it seems like an awful lot of people have played the game, they understand the storyline, they knew it was going this way. So I haven't seen a whole lot of backlash to the fact that Joel, he's taking an extended nap. That's what I'm telling myself. He's going to be out of action for a while, but he will be back. Okay, he died on Easter. It's pretty much confirmed he'll be back. By the way, I had to live through Joel's death. I had no idea about the Pope. None. I closed my recording software and opened Twitter to see what are people saying. I'm so upset. And then boom, the Pope is dead. I was like, this day is cursed. Oh my God, there goes that train of thought again. I have no idea where I was. Yeah, I haven't seen much backlash in terms of like Joel's death. A lot of people are mad. A lot of people are sad. A lot of people are like, oh, you know, fuck this show and everybody in it. And I agree. Oh my God, I agree. My eyes were burning for like 2 hours after watching yesterday. And I have a waterproof mascara. It's just, I don't like wearing it because it's really hard to take off. You have to use like oil and then your eyes are all oily and I don't like it. So I was like, I'll just wear my regular mascara. It's fine. It's whatever. And then before you know it, it's swimming in your eyeballs, burning at your retinas. You don't know where to look, what to do, and there's no fixing it because the more you fix it, the more it just keeps coming. And then it looks like you're bleeding black goo from your eyes and Joel is getting his head caved in. And I've seen a small few people being like, oh, I'm done with the show, I'm not watching anymore. But I feel like the majority of people, like if you were around and a part of like the Walking Dead fandom when the Negan lineup happened, people were hardcore split down the middle. It was like almost complete 50-50. People being like, mind blown, can't believe they did that, and I'm never watching this show again. So I just think it's interesting that didn't happen this time. And I think it's because Joel dying, it is so pivotal to the show, to the story, that it was gonna happen eventually at some point, that I think people just kind of get it. Now, I'm no critic or expert, clearly, but I 100%, I thought it was gonna happen in 5 or 6. This episode is like what? The season is 7 episodes long, right? Or is it 6? Whatever the second last episode is, I thought it was going to end on that scene and the finale was going to pick up right after. So I was like, we're grand. We have another few episodes to go. This is probably going to be, you know, backstory and flashbacks. And then when we open the episode with the Abby dream sequence, right, where she's talking to herself in the hallway and her her subconscious is telling her, don't go in there, Dad's brains is on the ground. I was like, oh, so this is going to be a backstory filled episode. And the funny thing is, I contemplated editing that whole part of my video out because at the start I was like, it's going to be fine. So we're going to see some backstory probably. I'm really excited for today's episode. When I was editing that video, I hadn't a single fuck left to give in the world. I'm sitting there, mascara running down my face, down my neck, down my titties, emotionally broken, no fucks left in the world. I was going to edit it out because I was like, oh my God, you sound like such a dumb bitch and everybody's going to think it. Everyone's going to be like, you dumb bitch. And most people were, but I think it just adds to the atmosphere of the fucking heartbreak. But yeah, so somebody pointed out in the comments like, well, Joel had to die for the story to go that way. And I do agree. I do still kind of think it's strange putting it in episode 2. The shock value was... it was certainly there. But I just think, I don't know, like you see it a lot with adaptations from comics or books, when things are made into films, when things are made into shows. And again, I'm going to use The Walking Dead as reference because it's one of the things I know most in the world. You know, there's like creative liberties that you can take. You can change storylines, give them to other characters. You can change up timelines slightly. You can change the timing of when you show things to people and how. And like we did see that with Abby. They changed when you find out why she did what she did, right? So it's like, there's also a scene as well that was missing. Wasn't it the porch scene? Should have happened, but didn't. So I'm guessing we're going to get that in flashbacks in a later episode. But yeah, so the point that I was making is, like, we probably knew Joel was going to have to die eventually. My delirious head, I was like, he's making it out of this season. No, Pedro's like really popular and really sexy and fantastically, beautifully splendid, and they're not going to get rid of him. I think they might just leave it till next season, actually. I think he might sign on for another 5. When you think about it, is that not a good idea? It was. Was it ever going to happen? No. But like, they could have switched up the way in which they did things, or the timeline for which they did things. I was just shocked it happened when it did. That's all I'm going to say. It has me wondering, so how are we going to like conduct the rest of the season? Is it going to be completely following the game, beat by beat? Because layout-wise and timeline-wise kind of feels like probably. I don't know, it just felt like it just felt surprising. Was it surprising, or was it just because I didn't want it to happen? But yeah, Caitlin Denver killed it as Abby. She has me all kinds of emotionally up in a heap. I've seen people saying like she's not as muscly as Abby in the games, and to that I say, who fucking cares? That's kind of irrelevant. You know what I mean? There's video game characters that get stabbed 8 or 9 times and they can just get up and walk along, slap half of a band-aid on themselves and they're healed. Certain things don't matter, you know what I mean? And as long as an adaptation stays true to the story at the core of what we're telling, then who cares? But that's just my take. We gotta talk about Ellie, okay? The scene, she walks into the cabin and she looks up at the ceiling and like you can hear his head banging off against the ground because that little fucker is going to town on him. She has no idea what that is. She's hearing her father figure's head be banged around, and not in a fun way. I said this before and I will say it again. That scene really reminded me of the scene. Do you remember the scene? What was his name? Was his name David? That scene from last season where she's fighting your man. The sounds that she made while she was fighting him and she was caving his skull in. Whoa. Bella just has this way of like conveying emotion through like sounds. It's fucking incredible. It's yeah, and the sounds that were coming out of Ellie when she was asking him to get up. I'm not gonna cry today because the waterproof mascara is not on today either. We're not doing that again. I just think it was a show-stopping performance from Ellie and from Bella. Oh my god, her crawling across the floor to him to lie on top of him, and she saved him once before. Do you guys remember when she thought he was on the brink of death? She saved him before, but she couldn't do it this time. I think that whole thing as well, it was like an unintentionally perfect moment for Abby, because Abby in that flashback that we saw where she was talking to herself, which, was she talking to herself? Was that like her subconscious being like, don't look at your dad's brains in the room, or does she have a secret twin that we're going to introduce? We heard her talking specifically about like seeing her dad's brains all over the floor, and Ellie had to watch Joel's brains be splashed all over the floor, and she could have like, you know, made Ellie leave the room while she finished Joel, but she didn't. She was doing to Ellie, she was like inflicting the same amount of trauma onto Ellie that was inflicted onto her as a child, and she didn't care. So it's kind of hypocritical. I understand you want to get your revenge. I understand you want to Lucille him. Do I understand? No, because it's Joel fucking Miller, sweet Jesus. And a lot of people had a problem as well with the, what is it, they say you're handsome. A lot of people were like, why was that needed? A haha moment, a joke, because, you know, that's what people say about him. It is a bit odd coming from her, because if someone killed my dad and I was planning on like ripping their insides out of their holes, I don't think I'd be like, yeah, you're handsome. Although if it was Pedro Pascal, a bitch might have to reevaluate her plan. But her crawling across to lay on him, just, oh my god, and there's blood trickling off his face onto the floor. Abby got her revenge and then scarred Ellie in the process, and it's also morally messed up. The last thing that Joel saw though was Ellie. He was facing her and we saw him try to lift his head. We saw him try. Don't cry. I am a strong woman. This is fake. It's make believe. Steve is staring me down like, please don't start crying again. Yeah, and a few of you were saying that in the comments yesterday. You were like, Steve is the real, you know, stand-up guy of this scenario, and he is. This is my sloth. I love him a lot. Did I even show you his t-shirt? The last emotional damage I took from this show, or, you know, one of the many times I took emotional damage from this show, it's Bill and Frank Strawberries. I like it. I used to wear that t-shirt, and then I looked at Steve one day and was like, it's weird that you don't wear any clothes. So I put it on him, and he's my emotional support sloth. Isn't that right? But him trying to lift his head to look at her, just, oh my god. But the last thing that he saw was her. The last thing he saw before dying was Ellie, and I think he would have wanted it that way. I can't think, maybe with the exception of seeing Sarah, I can't think of anything that would have like comforted him more. But at the same time, I can't think of anything that would frighten him more, because he's dying knowing I'm leaving her here. Oh my God, she's here. She's going to be in the room alone. She's so scared. Are they going to hurt her? Are they going to kill her? He died not knowing what happened to Ellie, and he died not knowing what happened to Tommy. The two people he loves most in the world, last thing he knows, the community is on fire, Jackson's on fire. He doesn't know if Tommy's okay or not. And then he's dying beside Ellie. Another thing as well that stuck out to me when I rewatched it that I didn't notice the first time around is the thing that she stabs him in the head with is the golf club. She hit him so hard she broke a golf club in half. And I'm like, it's details like that just the rage that she had in her was so raw, it was believable. Just a few things I want to touch on then from the rest of the episode is obviously I loved the attack. I thought like the whole infected coming out of the wilderness and smacking themselves off of the walls. The wooden walls, by the way. Again, I rewatched the episode last night and I noticed a lot of things around the second time that I didn't really the first. How long have you lived in the apocalypse? I understand wood is probably a lot easier to come by, but you're making your walls out of wood. There's motherfuckers walking around out there, dead undead, that can crack their heads through wooden walls, and your answer to that is, what if we make the wooden walls taller? Could have made it out of stone, or like steel slates or something, or windowless houses, so they can't break in. But that whole fight scene, Tommy with the flamethrower, okay, this was another hot debate. Tommy being there at the city to protect the city instead of being with Joel up at the cabin. And I'm like, I kind of prefer how that was done. I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like the storyline, it was just more impactful the way it happened, that it was just him and just her, because just Joel and just Ellie, because Dina was unconscious at that point. It was just the two of them looking at each other at his end. And the fact that Tommy got to have this whole other storyline where it's a hero storyline, I guess. He's running around the place with that flamethrower, laying into walkers. Oh my God, the Walking Dead fan of me is jumping out. Laying into infected, the bloater, by the way, which was cool to see back. And we see him and his wife work together. We get to see him like summon an infected to him like it's a dog. He's like, come here. I can't whistle, by the way. And he didn't whistle either. He was shooting at it. My favourite moment though regarding Tommy this whole episode, it wasn't the flamethrower. It wasn't what he did. It was when he finally reunites with his woman, with his lady. And she hugs him. And there's a brief moment that you see his legs buckle underneath him. And she's holding him up. And then he kind of holds that for a few seconds, and then he gathers himself and he stands up and they kind of walk away with their arms around each other. And I was just like, oh my God. And it's been interesting watching Tommy grow too, because again, I rewatched episode 1 last night, and that intro scene, the whole intro sequence where you see Tommy be very much the little brother to Joel. Like when they're driving in the car trying to get through the city and Joel's like, drive, like run over them, what the fuck are you doing? And Tommy's like, I don't know, man. Now obviously we see him shoot the soldier that shot Joel and Sarah, so there is like a little bit of a fucking kick to him. But just, I don't know, seeing like the maturity and how he's grown since episode 1. I don't even want to think about what's going to happen to him when he finds out about his brother. I liked the scenes between Ellie and Jesse this episode. I still think it's kind of weird that Jesse didn't care that she kissed his ex. He was like, yeah, I don't care, haha. It's like number 1 of bestie code. You don't get with your exes, with your friends' exes. If you do, that's the end of being a bestie. I'm sorry, I don't think I could be a friend when we've both had our tongues in the same person. But yeah, I like the scenes between Ellie and Jesse this episode, and I really liked as well where it was just before, or was it just after she gave the whole, I'm still Ellie, he's still Joel, like it is what it is. I'll go find him anyway, we'll go on like a daddy-daughter patrol day. She was being sarcastic. But we find out that Joel wanted to go on patrol with her, and he decided to let her sleep. And she wanted to go on patrol with him that morning. They were beginning to make amends. I'm guessing the porch scene had happened. They were on the road to being okay again, and then what the fuckery that swoops in out of the sky. I have a bunch of other points here, but I think I've made most of the points that I wanted to make. Yes, the end song at the end, a lot of people pointed out. The song playing at the end, I know. A lot of people pointed out as well. It was the first thing out of my mouth. Why are they dragging his body behind the horse? There was enough horses there, I'm pretty sure, unless maybe one of the horses was robbed when the group was leaving, when Abby and the group was leaving. But you still could have put Joel's body, his sleeping body, because he's fine. You could have sat it up on the horse behind Dina. Why were you dragging it along the floor? Some more points about, I have a little list up in front of me here. I loved the attack. I loved the snow walkers. The snow walkers was so good. I made this list of things I wanted to talk about last night, and I might have been a little bit inebriated. The snow walkers were so good. 1, darling, they're not called walkers. And 2, wow, what a top-notch sentence. Yeah, and I have down my question. If the lodge is so close to town, why did nobody man the lodge from the town? So the lodge was like overlooking the town. They probably should have had somebody on patrol in that place constantly. If their little town is like in a valley, it's sitting in, and there's like all mountains around it, there should be outposts on top of the mountains, or any of the buildings that are nearby should be manned by people who live there, so nobody can get the jump on you. Now, to be fair to them, how the fuck should Joel have known that the ghost of his past was going to swan up out of nowhere and beat him into the head? You know, he couldn't have known. Even though I feel like there's someone psychic living in that town, because the morning of the attack, Tommy called a town meeting, and we were all like, what should we do if we get attacked? We should have a game plan, and in that fucking night it happens. Talk about luck. The visuals in this were so good, the tension building, everything about it. I can't fault it. Obviously, I can fault it, and in the way if you killed my favourite character, I hope that both sides of your pillow are warm for the rest of time, and that you suffer a very brief minor headache. But apart from that, it was a great fucking episode. Another point that I made about this, she wasn't trying to save... Again, I'm reading from Melissa talking points that I made, in case you think I'm just like zoning the fuck out. That happens too. She wasn't trying to save anyone, she was just trying to kill. I like that. There wasn't a glimmer of regret or uncertainty in her eyes. It was just, oh, you're dead. No nuance, just cold-blooded killing. I like that. Why did you say that twice, you freak? How drunk were you last night? And this is something that I stand by. I stand by past me for making this point. You get this need for nuance in so many things lately, where it's like, good people can do bad things, bad people can do good things, but you see the glimmer, you see the nuance, you see them struggle with their decision. You didn't really have that with her. From the second she locked eyes with him, she was like, and then we get to the lodge, and again, I don't think she doubted herself once. There wasn't a moment of him being made humanized, of her like, oh well, shit, like he's a person. Can I do this? Can I? No, she never had that. Even though her whole group, and I think their response was fascinating. The whole group around her, they could barely look at her while she was doing it. She was locked the fuck in and ready to go. And I just think it's interesting to see, because usually in any other thing you would get that moment of, oh, can I do it? Should I stop? She didn't have that. This is one of the most ballsiest moves I think I've ever seen a TV show pull. I think everybody thought, especially with Pedro being like the world's darling, I really thought that they were going to keep him on for a little bit longer. And The Last of Us were really like, buckle up. And I wasn't buckled up. The roller coaster took off without me, and I fell out mid-ride. It's amped up everything now for the season, and I'm so fucking cautious. I'm going to go into every single episode with waterproof mascara, a packet of tissues, and some sort of fucking relaxer near me. I don't trust this show no more. Not that I ever really did. This is so nice though. I suggest to you, if you're sad, go back and watch episode 1, season 1, because Joel, there's a brief moment in that episode where he's happy before Sarah dies, and it's really nice to see. And I reiterate my point from the original thing, Pedro, pick some normal roles, please. I'm in the trenches, standing you die in everything you're in the most graphic of ways. And I said it, I watched his eyes get poked out twice. Once, he got his eyes poked out in The Equalizer 2, and then oh my god, in the same movie, spoilers, he got his eyes poked out and then he got thrown off a tower in the same film. He got his eyes poked out in Game of Thrones. I had to watch him be arrowed the fuck down to the ground in Gladiator, which shook me to my core. I was watching him run around in a skirt and I was like, this film is so great. Everyone looks amazing. And then, death to him. The fuck? And I said that I also saw him got thrown to a meat grinder. Yeah, if you guys have seen The Kingsman, the second one, is it a meat grinder or like some kind of blender thing? He ends up in bits. Much like I was watching him. I swear to God. His agent just sniffs the roll. This one's gonna hurt viewers. Do you want it? And Pedro's like, yeah, I do. The people in my comments were like, do you know what though? He's going to be in the Fantastic Four. I don't think he's going to die in that. He's going to be in Mando. I don't think he's going to die in that. And I'm like, well, I'm going into this Mandalorian movie with a closed, carefully guarded heart and low expectations, because I could see him sacrificing himself to save Grogu. I could see him, I don't know, somehow like taking off his helmet to give it to Grogu, to like give Grogu something to sit in or something. And then space sucks all the life out of his face and he floats away, lifeless, into the atmosphere. And as for Fantastic Four, I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe they stretch him too hard and he snaps in half like a cheese string. I don't trust nothing that motherfucker's in anymore, and it sucks because I love him. He's such a fantastic actor, and it just took it just took off by itself. This episode is going to make lists of like best episode of TV of all time. I know it's currently sitting at, I think the last I checked, the most highest rated episode of The Last of Us. It was impeccable. The acting from him, everything down to like when he offered his hand to Abby when they first met, and you could see the watch, and you could see the watch, and he was on the floor and his little hand twitching. I think especially with like with anything, people get so attached to shows and movies and franchises and characters and games. They do take on a life of their own. And for it to be done and portrayed that well, and in my opinion, it was done justice. I think it was an incredible episode, and Pedro has just he exceeded any expectation I had for the role, because I did play the game and I loved Joel before Pedro, and there was that little bit of hesitancy of how am I gonna feel about this? And then, you know, you get a few episodes in and I was like, oh my god, he's him. He is him. He, you know, gave such a big chunk of his life to this project and made art that is just so beautifully like heart-wrenching that it had the whole world crying for a day and probably days after too. I just hope he knows like how much this is meant to people. I'm sure he does. I saw a quote somewhere from him saying he was in active denial, and I'm like, nice, I'm gonna fucking join you there. That is a splendid idea. Same thing goes for Bella, same thing goes for Caitlin, same thing goes for Gabriel Luna who plays Tommy, same thing goes for any of the cast. This show really is something special, and they're doing an absolutely killer job with it. I just can't believe that we have to move on without him. Now, we're probably going to get flashback moments. I don't see this being like a cold exit for him, that he's just gone. I don't see that happening. They better give us Listen, I know that sometimes people from the shows that I do reactions or reviews on, sometimes they end up seeing these videos. If there's no flashbacks, you better find a way to sneak something in. Go edit it. Find the file and throw in like a picture of him smiling somewhere. Please. They were probably going to get a flashback scene somewhere, because there's a scene I can think of that hasn't happened that probably we should have seen. I'm guessing they're saving that for another emotional blow to cause some more devastation later down the line. And you know what? I'll love it. I will love it. Anyway, yes, that's that on that. Oh my god, I really haven't been this like shell-shocked by a show in a while. I thought it was a great episode of TV. I thought it was very well done. I'm just sad, okay? How do you go from like getting him punching homophobes in the face in one episode to being dragged along behind a horse, dead in a bag, like a fucking bag of vegetables? And I love it. I watched it again last night and I cried again. So yeah, lads, let me know your thoughts down below. It is always like very nerve-wracking when someone adapts a game or a book or a show, because they have to walk the fine line between being close enough to the source material, being respectful, and fan service, I guess, and changing things too much. But you do have to take creative liberties, otherwise you know everything is going to happen, so you got to make it different somehow and throw in curveballs somewhere, but you need to find the balance of being just right. And I feel like The Last of Us is doing that. I feel like they're walking the line perfectly. Yeah, so let me know what you thought if you haven't already. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for the love on that video as well. The comments were overwhelmingly nice, which had me shocked. Shocked, let me tell you. And I don't mind that you were laughing along when I was crying. It makes me feel better. A lot of people said that they were laughing and I was like, but I'm crying. And they were like, well, yeah, but look at you. You look a state. And I was like, oh, fair enough. Thank you guys for watching. And a big thank you to Pedro for being our Joel, for bringing him to life in a way that only he could have done, and for destroying us emotionally in only a way he could have done.